Hello everyone, welcome back to part 2 of the 228 Big Hat restoration. So here we have it, the fount's all painted up. The big hat itself is in really nice condition. I mean, we have some rust over here. I've noticed all of these from the 50s and the early 60s that have these little holes. They always seem rusted up here. And I'm going to guess it's because of the way they punched all the holes, and the porcelain just doesn't get on there well. But got all the rust off. It's looking really, really nice. We got the frame all cleaned up. Had a little rust down in here, which we all got off. The rest of it looks really nice. We'll set that aside. And the fount was stripped and repainted. Had a couple dents in it. I used some body fill. I noticed once you get the paint off of one of these things, you see all kinds of things that you didn't see before. Like when they put the bung in and the fuel cap, not cap, but the fuel filter, not filter. Man, I'm tongue-tied. The fuel nozzle, whatever you want to call it, and the pump housing. They get like, they have like a paste flux that's basically copper and copper rings, and they put them on there and they send them through a furnace. It's like 2100 degrees, and it superheats up the fount, and that copper melts into the joints. And I noticed on a bunch of these that, yeah, that copper kind of gets on places it shouldn't be, especially when I was doing my 502 stove. Man, there was globs of it. I had to actually use a file to get it off, but I digress. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to get around this camera here a little bit. All right, let me get this off of here. And we are going to, well, let me show you the rest here. The collar came out nice. It is an E. 228E, and all the rest of the parts were all cleaned up. No polish on them, but just cleaned up. Look very, very nice. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to check the fit of the fuel valve, the main valve. Okay, and I'll screw it in just to feel how tight it's going in. Because we want this to be centered between the fuel cap and the pump. Now, if it's going around and it's tight, very, very tight, I won't use any type of Loctite. Like I normally would use this blue if it's, let's say I'm at the position I want, and I really didn't have to crank down on it, because that's a tapered threading, okay? It's like a tapered fit. So you don't really need any Loctite or anything like that. But if it's a loose fit, let's say it was right there and I could actually, you know, turn it with my hand like this, I will put some Loctite in. And I only use a thread locker that's blue. You know, the red stuff is supposedly permanent. You need heat to get it back out again. And I don't want to do that. Okay, so want this to be lined up between the fuel cap and the pump. And you want it to be perpendicular. Let me get that done and I'll bring you back. All right, so we have that on. It's centered between the fuel cap and the pump, right in the middle, with the pump on the right, okay? Now, I did end up using a little bit of the blue thread locker because it got a little tight right here, but it kind of wanted to go a little bit more, and I'm not into cranking these things down. To make a whole nother revolution, I would have had to put that in the vise, and I would have had to really crank on it with a wrench. I don't see a need for that. But you do have to be careful, like especially if you're doing like a 200A, that the height of the valve, um, the way the frame sits on it is dependent on that. So if you went, let's say, one turn too many, you might not have enough threads left to clamp, screw down the frame. I hope that makes sense. But with this, we should be fine because we have plenty of room when we put the tip cleaner in. So basically now, like, this is going to sit up here, okay? And we should have plenty of room when we put the frame on, or the collar, frame rest, whatever you want to call it, okay? So I'm going to give that a few minutes to set up. And the next thing we're going to need to do is we are going to get our tip cleaning assembly. We'll get that ready. And I have the screw in here. Okay, we'll set all that aside. Just want to have everything out in front of me. So the next thing we're going to do is put in the new check valve. Okay? Rattle it, make sure you hear the ball rolling. And we're going to put a nitro ring on it. Okay, they have to be resistant to gasoline. So nitro or what is it, Viton or something like that. So we're going to get a little O-ring. Now this is optional. When you buy a new check valve, it's going to have one of these on it. But I was watching Frank from over at Old Town Coleman, and he suggests putting them on. And you could buy them, but I buy a whole assortment like that. And it fits perfectly. And there's two reasons for that. First one is to make a good seal. Second one is if you ever have to take it out again, it's going to be a lot easier. All right? So what I'll do is I'll drop this in there. And it went right in. Let me grab my tool. Alright, so we have a check valve tool. We'll take the rod. Get that screwed in. And make sure you use the correct side. This is the wider side. This is the thinner side. We'll just start putting it in by hand. And now with that O-ring on there, you don't have to crank down on this. Okay, you just want to snug it up. I'm not even going to get a 5/8 wrench. I'm just going to use an adjustable. And just snug it up like that. Now you can take this out. And your check valve is in. Next, we are going to put in get rid of that. The air valve. Stem. Line that up. All right, so we got that on. Now I have the pump assembly soaking in some oil. towel here so I don't get it all over. Oh, one other thing I forgot to tell you I like to do. Let me take this back out. I like to get a little oil. And pre-oil in there. Don't get your fingers stuck. All right, let me clean off my fingers and we'll finish assembling this. Now we will put our, don't forget this, I've done that so many times. I've put the pump in and forgot to put the check valve in, or forgot to put the stem back in, and you got to take it all apart again. Okay. Now, you want the hole where it says oil to be on top. Okay? So now we're going to line up the two holes on the side. Let's make sure this goes in, which it does. Make sure the hole is lined up on that side, which it is. And we'll get our little clip and we'll place that in there. Sometimes these things go on easy and sometimes they don't. I think I'm a little off. Now, if you have to get this out when it's freshly painted, try not to twist it. I'm just going to pop it out. You heard that little pop, which is great. It means I got a good seal. Doing this stuff in front of the camera is kind of tricky. Okay, that looks good. Yes. And sometimes they go on without a fight, and sometimes they don't. So if you're going to use a needle nose, be very, very careful. You do not want to hit the paint. Okay, so that's on. Let's give it a little pump to see. Ah, it feels nice. All right, so we got that on. Excuse me. Now, as the fuel cap is concerned, the filler cap, I do not have the gasket for the insert. This is a 3-piece. It did not come yet. So, we have to wait on that. But, this is that cap that has that hole in it that I was telling you about. So, it's always a good idea to use a 1-piece cap. Okay? So, we're going to put that on there for safety reasons. And when we have it up for display, we'll put back the original. Okay? So now, the next thing we're going to do is start to assemble this. Let me move over here. So now I have this little top of a coffee can, okay? This one actually I made for a 200. I got to cut it out a little bit more. And you want to slip this on there. This will protect the paint on your fountain. Now you want to slip on your frame, your frame rest. get our frame. I kind of know where I want everything lined up, so I'm going to kind of get it set up. We want it right about there, okay? And what you want is this rail here is going to be lined up with the valve right here, okay? Let me back off a little bit. The bouncy camera work here. So now we're going to put together our tip cleaner. We need the nut. So we're going to take this nut, put it all the way up to the top. Like so. We'll gently put this here. Where are we? Right there. And we'll start to screw that in. Okay. Now I got to get my wrench. Now we're going to want that to be lined up with this. So I got to crank down on that a little bit. But just the way you just saw me put that in, but I'm going to get right in front of it so you're not going to really see what I did. But okay. I'll show it to you when I'm done. Let's see if I can get you to see what I did. Alright, so this is lined up with the valve. And this tip cleaner assembly, if you screw this back in, should be lined up with this cutout here, okay? Which it all is. So now we're going to very gently slide out this, let me zoom back out. Whoops. We're going to slide out this protector cover here. Let me get my wrench to tighten that. Should be this one. Oh, that's for my 200. Okay. This is my 9/16 wrench that I made, ground all down to fit in there. So I'm just going to give it a couple turns. Start it getting close. Okay, so now we're going to carefully slip out that. Make sure everything is lined up. Go slow, just take your time. You go through all the work to put everything together, clean it up, paint it. You don't want to mess it up at this point. So I'll stop frequently and I'll look. I have to move this a little bit. You can see it's not perfectly lined in that hole. So I will try to just spin it. I'm going to loosen it up. Because if you spin it on freshly painted fount, you're going to mess it up. Okay. Take another look. Okay. We got that lined up. We got the tip cleaner lined up. We're looking in good shape. All right, put your back over the side so I can finish tightening this up. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to get the eccentric block. And with the cutout facing towards the tip cleaner, okay, I'm going to unscrew this and I'm going to actually get a little piece of wire. I like to get a little piece of wire, slip it in there so I could hold it. Like that. So it doesn't drop all the way in. And now I'm going to start to screw in my tip cleaner until it grabs. It's a little tricky. Whoop, lost it. I gotta get that out of there. Okay. There it is, right there. All right, so now I'm going to tighten this nut right here. I needed my little wrench. Too big. I'll just use this open end. Tip cleaner is working great. All right, just give that one final snug. All right. Next, we have to put in our air tube and our burners. So I'm just going to screw these in. I love the look of the brass. And I'm going to get my little wrench here, my little channel locks, and a piece of leather. And I'm just going to snug them in. Whoa, slip right off. All right. So we got those snugged in. Now this is going to slip right down into the back side of that tip cleaner, and if you did everything right, the hole is going to be aligned, okay? Which we're looking good. So we're going to just tighten this down. And you want to get that, there's a hole, let me show you where the hole is. There's a hole right there. You want that to match up with that hole, because that's where we're going to put our screw back in. So screw it down. What I like to do is I just get a pick so I can feel it, because you want that lined up. Looks good. Let's see, this should go right in. Boom. See that? Now, we get our screw, which I didn't clean. Let me go clean that real quick. Back. Now we're going to get this screw in there, which is kind of a little bit of a pain in the neck. And again, if you have everything lined up, that screw is going to go flush with no problem. All right. That lined up. Now, I'm going to give this a couple extra tweaks here. Make sure my frame is as tight as I want it, since everything is already lined up. Now, you don't want to go crazy on this. You just want it, you don't want the frame to be moving, okay? So there you have the basic assembly. Everything is lined up. Let me refocus this camera over here. Slide all this out of the way. So everything is lined up. Looking good. So now let me go get the globe and some mantles, and of course we're going to fire this thing up. Okay, two things I forgot. Put the little knob back on. Make sure it's turned all the way off. And I forgot to show you the generator. Let me get a little closer over here. I think I showed this in another video, but the spring in this one was actually broken in half. I saved it, and of course, I can't find it right now. So what I had to do was put a new spring in, which is where all of these parts lanterns come into play. Okay, hopefully I can get this out, and I could show you what I did. Let me get my little hooky thing. My little hooky set. This is the Moody Acu-Mini line and Pollux series miniature hand tools. This thing, I can't tell you how many times I've used this. So I have this one with a little crooked hook on it. Just going to grab my spring and slip it out. Now I had to use the heating up with the torch and quenching to get everything apart. Okay, and this whole top part of the spring was missing. So this is a replacement spring. And instead of using the cardboard packing, which was pretty much destroyed, I wrapped this in bronze wool, okay? The bronze wool is absolutely awesome. It stops the pulsing, it works great, and I got a giant pack of 3 rolls of it for like, I don't know, $6-7. So you're gonna want to put your tip cleaner back in there, slip it in, just give it a little, you don't want this super duper packed, okay, but you want it wrapped around. Slide that up. Okay, now I can pull my tip cleaner back out right there. Now we're going to go over to the lantern. And hopefully you'll be able to see this. Let me try to do it from the back side so you can see it. Okay, so when I put the tip cleaner up, the eccentric block will come up, and there's the little hole that this clips into. Then I want to slip this into the hole in the air stem up there. Okay, so I want you to watch down here though while I do it. So I'm going to slip this up into there, hook that into there, and turn the tip cleaner. Whoops, forgot something very, very important. The nut. Okay, slip that up in there. Now turn the tip cleaner down. That'll pull it down and line it up. Then you tighten this nut down. All right, let me zoom out and we'll continue on. All right, let me get that nut tight. And again, that's supposed to be a 7/16, and it really isn't. It's just, you have to force to fit it on. So I have this little wrench here that I used, and I actually filed this down to fit perfectly on that nut. So I don't have to fight. Fight with it, you know what I mean? All right. So I have here these peerless mantles. For some reason, the price of the Coleman mantles in Walmart almost doubled. I used to get a 4-pack of the tie-ons for about, it was $4 and change. They went up to almost $8. I don't know why. Okay, so I'm like, yeah, that's crazy. So I bought these peerless. I forget exactly what I paid for these, but it was close to what Walmart used to sell them for. So we're going to try these out. They seem to have some pretty good reviews. This is a 4-pack. So we'll put 2 away. Set them aside. Now what I like to do is, am I in frame? James, am I in frame? I put a little knot, I start my knot. Just an overhand knot on there. Because these are kind of a pain in the neck to get on. So kind of tweak it up a little bit. Now, slip that on there. You want that to be like this next to the generator as opposed to being like this. Okay, so get it as close as you can to that. We'll snug this up. And we'll just put an overhand knot in it. And then we will snip off the extra. All right, I'll do the other one off camera because that's so tedious. All right, so we have the mantles on. We shall give them the initial burn. It's a smoking. All right. Let that smoke die down a little bit. We got the fuel valve off. We got the filler cap nice and tight. Now we're going to pump her up. All right, now first thing I'm going to do is listen to it. So I'm going to just crack the valve and I want to listen to it. I want to hear air. And I'm waiting to hear sputtering, which I hear. Okay, so that's great. I'm going to give it a few more pumps. And I'm going to start to heat up the generator. Just as I expected, the mantle's actually lit because we had that sputtering. Now as you notice, if you do it that way, you have a lot less smoke. Now you can crank this full blast. Look at that, folks. Beautiful. The 220-80 Big Hat. Full restoration. get our globe. Of course, we got to put the big hat on. Where is my nut? And there you have it, in its full glory. Shut off some lights. Beautiful. Nice, Captain, nice. Let me back up a little bit so you can see the whole big hat. Oh yeah. Beautiful. I love the way the brass shines in there with the light on it. So I have to do a side-by-side test of these Peerless as opposed to a, well, compared to a Coleman. Well, there you have it, folks. I hope you found that interesting. This one was relatively easy. Everything cleaned up great. You know, the hardest part of this one obviously was stripping down the fount. And, you know, I did not end up soaking that in vinegar. The inside was pretty rust-free. I really didn't see anything I needed to be concerned about inside the fount. The outside was another story. Like I said, once you strip the paint, there was a lot of spots that had, you know, pitting from years of not really taking care of it, right? So take care of your lanterns. Put a little, you know, coat of wax on the fount, especially around the bottom rim. As you can see, I never put it down on anything bare. I always have either a paper towel. You know, I'm kind of weird like that. But another upcoming project is I'm going to be working on a stand for outside use. So stay tuned for that. But there you have it. Another lantern done. Again, this is one I don't have on display yet, so I'm excited to get that up, get this one up there. 228E. This was dated 1 of 60. So it's got some age to it. But definitely had fun with it. It's working great. I'd have to say that when I'm all done with it and then I fire it up and it lights right up with no problems, that is so satisfying. And again, I guess basically that just comes with the more you do, the more you learn. You know, the little trick of waiting until you hear the air and then the sputtering and then shutting it off and then hitting the generator with your heat, you know, from your lighter, and then it lights up without even being on. That's pretty awesome. I learned that from Frank from Old Town Coleman. So again, to everyone out there, Steve Winkleman, Rob from Bluegrass Bushcraft and Old Coleman Repairs and Restorations, and Daniel Carbonneau, and who else am I missing out here on? Gosh, there's so many of you fellas out there I'm just learning so much stuff from. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate all of you coming along, my brothers and sisters. I'm sending you all much love. Again, I'm yapping over here, but hey, that's what I do. I should change the name of my channel to the Yapper Channel. Oh man, I'm cracking myself up. I can just imagine what my neighbors must think if they're walking by and hear me yapping away in here and nobody else is in here with me. It's all good. Hey, you need to be your own best friend, right? If you don't like yourself, who else is going to like you? All right, everyone. Again, thank you for coming along. I always appreciate it. Sending you much love. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you all are feeling well, and we'll see you on the next one.